Our theme this month, as you know, is how affirmative prayer works. And today's topic is Metafizzling. Metafizzling. This month we've been exploring how affirmative prayer or spiritual mind treatment actually works. We began on the first Sunday with addressing belief systems and how they drive our expectations. Then last week, we looked at how we can ramp up our belief systems and our expectations by increasing and expanding our awareness. Adding awareness, as we addressed it last week, to the list of the other therapies available to us definitely is in our own best interest. So what shall we talk about today? Why not metafizzling? I first heard this term several years ago when one of my staff ministers in California did a talk for me one Sunday, and that was his title. And I could not wait to hear what he had to say about that. I was intrigued by that, and I wasn't disappointed when I listened to that CD recording. So some of what he said appears in this talk, but most of it has been updated to current times. So what does metafizzling actually mean to each one of us? And I am going to turn the tape or the recording off for a moment, just so that we can talk about this. Here are a couple of other comparisons that I thought about, also with the help of Reverend Don when he did this talk, or one similar to it. I sort of compare it to like a fireworks show. You know, like the one down at the Matalani Hotel that they have on the 4th of July and again especially on New Year's Eve. We get all excited anticipating the wonderful display, just like we do when we know what it is we really, really, really expect from our affirmative prayers. Then finally, it appears. Great bursts of light, noise, beautiful displays of color and patterns fill the sky. Just like when what I prayed for actually showed up in a week or less. It's what I'm here for. It's as good or maybe even better than I expected. But every so often, there's a pause. Nothing lights up the sky. Just like ever so often, I do my spiritual mind treatments and nothing happens. Whoa, what's wrong? What's broken? Or, oh no, it's over. However, as we've learned, if we stay with it, the fireworks or the affirmative prayer work. It resumes working, and the successful show goes on. Oh wait, there's more. You know, just like the informational ads on television, infomercials. But wait, there's more. Sometimes Pyrotechnic Bob, down there in the fireworks trenches, shoots one of those magical rockets into the air, and we can see its contrail as it goes up. It's heading for the heavens. But there's no explosion. There's no burst of light. There's no spray of colors and it fizzles. You know what I'm saying? You've seen that, haven't you, once in a while? The only time I don't see it is at Disneyland. They never fizzle. It's amazing. But it just, in these other instances that we see, they just fall back to earth. What do we call that? We call that a dud, don't we? Well, metafizzling can be like that, because ever so often it seems like going to services on Sunday and taking classes during the week and saying my spiritual mind treatments and yada, 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 like all the spiritual work I'm doing ain't working. My metaphysical practices seem to have fizzled, just like that fireworks did. Except, my friends, when I have looked at the BS in my life, we all remember what that is from a couple weeks ago, my belief systems, and I have practiced some awareness, like we talked about last week, I can assure you my affirmative prayers are working. It's just that sometimes my time frames, my deadlines, are not in sync with God's. In fact, in God there is no time. How could there be time in infinity? How could there be time in eternity? Time, per se, is a human invention. Some say in order to keep everything from happening all at the same time. The way affirmative prayer, spiritual mind treatment, works is this. As soon as I speak my word into universal mind, it's a done deal. In Spirit's mind, Spirit offers no resistance to it. It doesn't edit it. It cannot ignore it. And it certainly doesn't judge it. It never goes on Facebook or Twitter and takes a poll of my friends to see if more of them agree than disagree with my intention. So what's left? Well, let me quote from one of my favorite metaphysicians, sometimes known as Learned Ernie. I now accept the creative action of the words I have spoken as the law, and the thing whereunto they are directed. They go forth into immediate fulfillment. Remember that phrase, immediate fulfillment. Right now, they are fully manifest. There's no delay. There is nothing that can prevent them from now being fully and completely fulfilled in my experience. They are words of power and good. I accept them. I know they are the truth of that which I am. In and through them, God does come forth into new creation. It's now done. It's now complete. For this knowledge, for this understanding, I am grateful. I give thanks that all of this is so. I know and accept that there is one life. That life is God's. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. Right now. And so it is. Acceptance. Ernest Holmes is telling us in this quote that all that is left is our acceptance of the words that we have spoken, the desire that we've created, the intention that we've committed to. When we have accepted and believe we are deserving of such action, it shows up in our physical reality. And incidentally, this is what he has called the fourth step in spiritual mind treatment, acceptance. So the antidote for metafizzling is not to turn away from the fireworks show, so to speak, to say that they don't work because one of them was a dud and fizzled, and leave never to return. One fizzle, whether it's a rainbow rocket or a spiritual mind treatment, does not a failure make. And there are actually several antidotes to an affirmative prayer that seems to have metafizzled. And before I turn the recorder off and we talk about that a little more, think about the two examples that we were given a few moments ago. The one being, this is bubbling and working and just waiting for the right and proper moment to be declared ready, done, cooked, if you will. And in the other example, this is something that isn't working, and I've already given it a week to do something. Have I given myself a week? Or have I given myself an indefinite period of time in order to recognize that this is on me now to be ready to receive? So I want to ask you now, I'm going to turn the recording off again. I want to ask you for some reasons that you can think of that are antidotes, other than the two I've already discussed because they came up earlier, that are antidotes to what seems to have metaphysics. So the antidote for metafizzling, which we've talked about at some length here in the room, I'm just going to summarize briefly for the recording, and then we'll close. One of the things that we want to remember is that when at first you don't succeed, try again. Clarify your intention. Simplify and trust. Secondly, examine the quality of what you're putting out there. How does it serve you in a positive and life-affirming way? Believe it. Believe it can happen. Believe that your word has as much power as you are willing to give it. It is not measured. It is not rejected. It is not edited. Your word comes back to you, pressed down and multiplied. So choose carefully and then watch carefully. Pay attention to what comes back. This we talked about earlier and then again in the second discussion, and that is make sure you're clear about what the outcome is that you choose. Focus your energies and your attention on the outcome you choose, not the details. The details can be handled by Spirit. Trust me. Believe it can happen. Know that you're worth it. This is probably the biggest single drawback to successful spiritual practice, and that is believing that you are worth that which you are intending. This is where we do the most work in spiritual counseling, in classes, in workshops, and that is developing your own sense of worth. And it is as valuable as anyone, including Spirit, because you are that after all. You come from that, you're made up of that. You are in constant contact with it, even when you're not doing it consciously. So give yourself a break and lift that self-value to a higher level and recognize that what you are intending, you deserve. You are worth. Here's another one. This is a plug, and we'll talk about this some more after the talk, and that is to redouble your efforts to learn metaphysics. This is such a magnificent teaching, and it's not just religious science or science of mind, but metaphysics, to go beyond the physical into what we are now recognizing with the likes of what's available to us in books and on CDs and videos and YouTube and music. It's not that metaphysics has expanded, it's that the availability to it has expanded through these marvelous different opportunities that we have. This is one of them on Sunday. Classes are another. But it's an endless array that you can tap into anytime you choose. Just go one step at a time rather than trying to absorb it all in the first week or two with as I said earlier, time out for commercials. This is your life. This is the rest of your life. This is your eternal life that you are actually expanding on. And when all else fails, call a practitioner. Call a practitioner. At the moment, I'm the only licensed practitioner in our center, but we're working on that to develop additional licensed practitioners. There are other options for you. You can call our CSL website, and they have practitioners available to talk with you. There are a couple over on the other side of the island that if you would prefer to talk to a stranger, although, I don't know, Mark Johnson has been here a few times. He's strange, but he's not a stranger. And he is a licensed practitioner. Kathy Huff over there, who is also a licensed practitioner. Or I can hook you up with someone on the mainland that might be particularly adept at working with you on a particular challenge that you're having. But when all else seems not to be working, talk to a licensed practitioner. These people are so well trained. They spend 4 years in training to become licensed practitioners. That's the equivalent of a college education. And we don't license them until they are able to work with individuals in these very areas. And there's lots of them now. So if you're hooked up with one and that's not working for you, we can find someone else. We have an area coordinator who is in touch with all of the centers in our area. And it's not just Hawaii, it's the entire West Coast as well. And she is a resource for us in utilizing other practitioners when and if we need to. So let me close by saying this. I got a little more to say. Bear with me here. Maria Namath, in her book, The Energy of Money, and some of you have heard me talk about this before, she says this: those of us who metafizzle operate under the delusion that there is a cause and effect relationship between what happens in the metaphysical and the physical realms. We hope that if we think positive thoughts, positive things will happen to us in physical reality. The more useful approach, she says, is that we expend our efforts in the metaphysical realm to clear ourselves to be available to what can happen in physical reality. Then, in physical reality, we let go of any limiting beliefs and know our true intentions. So you see, she's talking about working on one realm in order to improve and lift the other. We're talking about working on a metaphysical realm in order to lift the physical, which is where we live and move and have our being in this present plane of existence. Maria Namath is well known in metaphysical circles, but not as a religious scientist. She grew up in the Jewish faith and is now a practicing Buddhist. She's also a doctor of psychology, and she works with Unity Churches International and has taught at Esalen Institute in California, which some of you may be familiar with. There is sometimes the perception that as religious scientists, we're narrow and rigid in our beliefs. In fact, however, these are principles that work in every religion and every philosophy. Those who are at the forefront of their specialties are of kindred mind far more often than not. The common saying, truth is truth wherever you find it, certainly applies to BS, belief systems. It applies to awareness, and it applies to affirmative prayer, spiritual mind treatment. And the use of affirmative prayer works on behalf of whoever practices it. It's just that Ernest Holmes gave the world such a clear, beautifully clear and uncomplicated blueprint for it that we call the steps in treatment. So when we find ourselves beginning to metafizzle, that's the very time to ramp up our belief systems and our expectations by increasing and expanding our awareness. That's the very time to gift ourselves with expanded participation in the spiritual community, in the vast array of available classes, books, CDs, workshops, the things that I talked about a few moments ago. That's the time to intensify our spiritual mind treatment work and to get support from a minister or a practitioner in developing those skills. Just as we eat food when our body is hungry, drink fluid when our body is thirsty, we must nourish our minds, our soul, our essence, to keep it strong, to keep it healthy, active, and happy as well. Don't let one dud dull your reserve and resolve to accept the best for yourself. There's so much more waiting to be displayed. And so it is.